for that. I was thinking, actually, there was a slight irony, wasn't there, in the hymn that we've just heard, "Make me a channel of your peace," and the story of Jesus in the temple, because it's actually one that slightly discomforts us. We want Jesus to be meek and mild, but actually we have something very different here. So here's a teaser. What do you think my coffee mug has in relation to the cleansing in the temple? Okay, there's a starter for 10. I'll let you know in a minute. But we've heard, first of all, the Ten Commandments, and then this cleansing of the temple. And as I said in my little video clip that I sent out, in a sense, the Ten Commandments underpin much of what we expect from society. And we can imagine Moses going up the mountain and being given these commandments, coming down. As I said, he has to go up and get a recup when he smashes them on the ground, these tablets of stone, because of the wickedness of the people. But we live in what we like to consider to be a fairly ordered society, although actually over the past year it's been very messy indeed, hasn't it? It's been turned upside down. But actually we have laws, we have rules, and many of them are based on the concepts of the biblical laws and the Christian ideas that flow from them. So they're very important to give us order. And for many of us, we are what you might call creatures of habit. Now, what's a creature of habit? Well, a creature of habit is somebody who likes to do things at particular times. So you're used to doing this at a particular time. You do particular things. You go to places at particular. So there's a rhythm to the way that we live our lives. And sometimes that rhythm is upset. As I say, that's certainly been the case now. But when I was training at Mirfield to be ordained, most of the students and the staff knew that I needed a coffee by about 10:20. So they'd hear my footsteps go down the corridor towards the little kitchen, and there I'd make my coffee, and that was the mug I always used to make the coffee in. Sometimes staff and students would come to my room and join me for coffee as well, which was really lovely. The reason I mentioned the mug is, and the fact that it's related to the gospel reading today, is because I bought it in a place called Oberammergau. Oberammergau is a village in the Bavarian Highlands, in the Bavarian Alps. And it's very, very famous because every 10 years, the villagers put on a passion play, which tells the story of Jesus, and its great climax is the death and then the resurrection of Jesus. But it tells the story in a very dramatic way. And the people of Oberammergau have done this since the 1600s. Every so many years, 10 years, they put on this great production, and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, go to see it. Now, it should have taken place last year, but of course it had to be cancelled because of the pandemic. I haven't heard that it's taking place this year, but they'll certainly do it once they're able to put it on again. And the reason that they put on this play is because they believe that God really rescued them in a period of plague, when plague was sweeping throughout their part of the world. So they said, well, we're going to tell the story of Jesus in this dramatic way. And I know that many people watching today have actually been to see that play. I've never seen it. I've been to Oberammergau lots of times. I love it. I love that area, but I've never been actually in a year when they've done the play. But in the village is a pottery, and the lady who runs the pottery is called Barbara Lamper. And if you look at the bottom of my mug, impressed there, can you just see, there's her stamp, a B and an L, Barbara Lamper. And she is one of the Lang family. Lang family, a very famous family in Oberammergau, and many of them have played the principal parts in the play over hundreds of years. And I think Barbara actually at one point played the I think Mary Magdalene. So anyway, Barbara once told me a little story. When I went in, I was going to see her, and I usually buy a bit of pottery, maybe a mug, maybe a bowl. And I love the earthy colours of her pottery. And she was telling me about the play one year. And she said that she'd taken over as a potter from her uncle. And she had to prepare some pots for the play. And in the scene where Jesus cleanses the temple, he overturns the tables of the money changers, lets the animals out and all that sort of thing, he smashes one of these pots on the stage to show how angry he is. And Barbara, making them for the first time, thought, well, I'd better give it a slight glaze because it's quite rough if they're not glazed. So she glazed this pot. And unfortunately, when the person playing Jesus threw it down, it bounced across the stage and fell into the orchestra pit. Well, I like that story because it gave us a bit of an idea that actually nothing is perfect. And this play which they put on, I know, is wonderful. But it's so great to hear that even there things can go wrong. And actually, that is, in a sense, something at the back of my mind when I think of the story of Jesus cleansing the temple. Imagine Jesus going into this great complex of buildings where God was worshipped. Jesus was most familiar with the way that people, this was his life, his religious life. The temple was at the heart of the lives of all Jewish people at that time. And it was a busy place filled with people, filled with animals for sacrifice. Horrible idea now when we think of it, but that's what they did. That's what they felt was pleasing to God because the laws of the Bible told them that that was what was expected. So Jesus goes in there and he sees corruption going on, wrong practice. You had to, if you wanted to buy a sacrifice, you had to change your money into temple money, a bit like Disney dollars. If you go to Disneyland, you have to change your money into Disney dollars. And that's what they had to do at the temple. They had temple dollars instead. And huge fraud going on, people fiddling the books, all that sort of thing. And Jesus goes in and he has this moment when he's so angry that he reacts by turning over the tables of the people who were changing money, letting the animals out, really objecting to what's going on and saying, look, this is my Father's house, yet you've turned it into a den of thieves, of robbers. So it's a dramatic moment. And in a sense, it's a moment which really upsets the authorities and ultimately leads to the cross. One of those markers on Jesus's journey when he ultimately is led to the cross. That's where our Lenten journey leads us. These 40 days of Lent, they lead us to think about what Jesus did for us. He challenged people. He challenged people to look at life itself and the way that they were living it. And that means, not being always creatures of habit. We like habit, but we have to always think outside of the box as brothers and sisters in Christ. Think about the way that we're going to interact with all the people that we come into contact with and the way that we're going to treat them. As Georgie said in the introduction, in a sense, Jesus collapses the 10 Commandments, those great markers of the way that people are called to live their lives, down to 2. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Now that might sound quite easy, but actually loving is something that has to be worked at. And so we see Jesus working that out in its fullness for us when he gives himself on the cross for the life of the world, for the life of humanity, for you and for me. He holds each one of us in his heart. as he hangs on the cross. And by doing that, he then leads us to resurrection life, to a new way of living, a new way of looking at the world, a new way of touching people's lives, a constant journey, something to be worked at, something which sometimes makes us feel really uncomfortable. Yet, Jesus is with us, always. As we'll hear in a song later on in the service, he will hold me fast. Jesus bears all that we go through with us and loves us. And we know how much he loves us because of the cross. So we give thanks today for the sense of order within our lives, but also the sense of disorder in the way that Jesus calls us always to look at every situation and to respond wherever we can by loving. Sometimes that's hard work, but that's who we are.